Welcome to the channel. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more exciting stories from Reddit. I caught my wife with her co-worker while she said she was doing therapy. Long post. There is a lot to tell, but I got to let this one out as it played out in my head. I, 37M, caught my wife Cass, 32F, were married in 2018. We met a few years before that through business because we are in the same industry. I love her more than everything. The reason I married her was because I had major turmoil in my life and she stuck with me. We had a small break before we got back together. When we started talking again, I found out my father was indicted in a cold case murder. He was going to jail. The terrible part is my father had custody of my nephew L, 4M. At this time, I was the only family member able to take him on because my brother was currently in jail. Through this, she said we would do this together. I knew I wanted to marry her right then. My wife was told she more than likely was not going to be able to have kids, but I wanted to marry her anyway because of how much I loved her. I always wanted to be a dad but was willing to sacrifice that because of how much I loved her. During this terrible time, I wanted something solid. We were best friends and have made it through so much. I felt like we could tackle the world together. I asked her to marry me on a weekend, and then we found out she was miraculously pregnant the following week. We went from talking again to a family in no time. Looking back, I wanted to have a long engagement to make sure we worked through any issues from our break, but instead we were thrown right in. We were married in 2018 and everything was great. I loved her very much and our marriage wasn't perfect, but I was loyal to her and she was my ride or die. Fast forward to 2021. We moved states because I had to take a new job because of our business being derailed by COVID. This new job required me to travel a lot and she wanted to be close to her family for help with our 3 kids. We had 2 beautiful girls on top of my nephew. Cass quit her last job and worked locally with family. She hated being home because her family were full of constant judgment and asks. When help was needed from them, it was like pulling teeth. It honestly pulled us down and reminded her why she left the first time. Her old employer asked for her back. But this job was 4 hours away and without really discussing it too extensively like a couple should, it required her to be gone during the week. She was going to work this into a remote position, but as she started the job she started to like being away. She left me to take care of the kids, which I love them, but it was hard. I felt abandoned. I still traveled 2 days a week and had to rely and deal with her family. Not to mention all of the duties of taking care of 3 kids. She would come home on weekends and it would be fight after fight. I wanted and needed help, but when she came home she would hardly want to hang out with us but instead go out with her brother and friends. All I wanted was help. The business we are in is primarily male. She started being distant and we were hardly casual anymore. Last summer we moved to where she was working. Her time there changed her. She is a beautiful tall blonde and constantly getting hit on by her male co-workers and customers. She had a co-worker Seth, 33M, who I knew before from being in the same industry. I liked him. I never felt threatened by him because all dealing with him have been good. He put out there that he was a moral man as far as I could tell. I did not feel threatened for he was not Cass's type. After we moved, I tried everything I could to make Cass happy. Listening, emotionally, supportive, complimenting, I bared any household task to try to make an effort to no prevail. What I did was never good enough. We finally got to a point where we both agreed for us to make it therapy was our best option. We agreed on individual therapy first. She found an online therapist which I thought wasn't the best, but it was what she wanted to do. One day she asked me what my plans were later in the week. I told her I didn't have to travel and would be working from home. She asked if I could work at a coffee shop that day because she wanted space. She wanted to work home that day and had a therapy session. I said sure. We have always shared our location due to safety. A few times in recent weeks her location would randomly turn off. She said it was an issue with her phone. The day she had her session in the afternoon, she made sure my location was working and called me to make sure. I felt it suspicious. I asked her if everything was okay and she said yes. I turned off my location and 15 minutes before her session she asked why it wasn't working. I told her my phone must have the same issues as hers. She asked if I was still the coffee shop and I said yes. She said I could come back in 2 hours. My spider sense went off. I left the coffee shop as I could see her location was not at the house. I drove back and parked down the street. 5 minutes later I saw Seth and Cass both get out and walk into the house. It was obvious that she wasn't going to therapy. I waited for 10 minutes as my heart was beating uncontrollably and the thought of what I would find in there and how it would ruin me. But I had to know. I walked in and no one was in the living room. There is no reason a man that Cass works with should be in any other room. I made it to our bedroom and opened the door to find them both about to do the deed. He was butt naked on my bed with her almost there. I looked at her and yelled, "Is this a new type of therapy?" Both of them had utter shock in their faces. She ran after me trying to say it isn't what it looks like. I broke down. I didn't cry, but my body and mind took over for my world was turned upside down. Seth exited as quick as he could as Cass made sure she was between us. I tried to leave but Cass was physically blocking me. I'm traditional in the aspect to where I would never physically hurt a woman. But a relentless version of Cass came out. All I wanted to do was leave. I was a former defensive lineman and used my old moves to evade her without having to get physical. Once I got to my car, she blocked me from leaving. In order to leave I had to trick her like I wanted to talk, but I sprinted to the car and took off. I think she broke a nail trying to grab the door handle as I was speeding away. I'm flushed with anxiety. I don't understand how she could have done this after all I did was try to make her happy. The picture of that man naked on my bed is haunting me after he tries so hard to come off as a good man. Still have to process this. Update 1. I would like to thank Reddit and the community. Everyone here has been so supportive and I have given great advice. While I was driving away, I probably should have pulled over at some point because I was hyperventilating and couldn't get my heart rate down. However, the first thing I thought of were my kids. I immediately drove to their school and picked them up. At this point, I was getting bombarded with calls and text messages from her. I decided to block her. My only thought of the situation was where are my kids and were they going to be okay? Even with what I just saw I still was thinking about what was best for them. Under my supervision and control I could make sure that they were okay. I needed them now more than her and she could spend the weekend by herself wallowing in what she has done. Once I got the kids, I drove to a family member 2 hours away. This happened on a Friday and I was able to take a weekend and have time with just me and my kids. During this drive, I started to get calls from her mother and she was our mediator. The only thing I told her to say was the kids are safe. I told her not to share anything else about our situation or where we were going. It was Cass's choice to break up the family. I felt she didn't warrant that info. Mother-in-law agreed and told Cass kids were safe. I was emotionally dead inside. The only thing that brought out positivity were the kids. We did a bunch of activities through the weekend and had a great time together. They wondered where their mom was. I told them that this was a weekend for Daddy to spend time with them. I still wanted to put Cass in a positive light and not to be spiteful to their mother. Kids eventually make their own mind up. Found out later that she was worried because of the emotional state that I was in and would somehow hurt the kids. Goes to show how much she really didn't know me anymore because I would never do anything like that. Starting to see some of the dialogue that she was putting out there in order to sway certain opinions. To add context, though I loved her very much and wanted to make her happy, she had narcissistic qualities about her. When I was sick, she would have been more sick. I had a problem, her problem had to be bigger. Cass decided to adopt my nephew with me, but I believe that this was a tactic to lock me down. At that point in my life, I was very successful, and had a lot of good qualities that I believe someone else would want to find. During our break she realized this and saw this as an opportunity. Due to my upbringing, I have some insecurities about myself, but from what other people said, they think that I am a good person and always try to make everything better. That's always who I try to be. I'm not trying to say I'm perfect or that I didn't have my problems or issues. I most certainly did. But I always try to make everyone and everything better. My nephew became a problem to her. Since we jumped into being a family with finding out that she was pregnant, and adopting him at the same time, I believe she had some animosity because of some of her life was stolen from her. Their relationship was always rocky. He was never right in anything that he did. I think that he has some underlying issues now because of their relationship. I was constantly having to defend him for him just being a kid. He did have some issues that I do believe were valid and we got him the appropriate care. When you get a kid into the mental health system it's always slow and rocky because everything is trial and error for kids so young. I did my best to see all sides of the situation, but it didn't matter and I was usually stuck in the middle. To give you an update on Seth. He is married with a few kids. He does work in the industry. I am not sure what I'm going to do yet. I still can't help but think of the person that he put off and finding him in my bed like that. I do know that he has blocked me on all social media, so I'm assuming that he's doing damage control to make sure that his wife doesn't find out. However, the 10 minutes in the car before I walked in, I found out a way to contact her for a worst-case scenario. The power of the completely ruining somebody scares me, but if that's the right thing to do, then is what I will do. Ruining somebody has its advantages and disadvantages, but also seeing him potentially get away with this also, it's gonna be tough to do. I would also like to let everyone know for my own benefit and to protect myself, I did record the whole situation on my phone. I have watched it over numerous times and I know that's not the right thing to do, but I'd rather have all the pain right now than linger later. I have unblocked my wife and have had very limited contact as I told her I don't really want to talk this way. I let her talk to the kids on the phone so she can let them know that they are missed. I'm planning on having a face-to-face meeting with her and writing everything down that I have an issue with and letting her know that. A lot of you were saying just take it to a lawyer, and I think that is ultimately what's going to happen. However, I believe this one-on-one is going to give me closure and a direction moving forward. The other advice that a lot of you have given is to get a paternity test on my kids. I can say, with the utmost certainty, that these are my children. They look just like me, the timelines check out, we have the same birthmark between the three of us, and the color of hair isn't something that could be questioned. In the beginning, I truly believe that she did love me or loved the idea of me. I don't believe that she would have screwed that up. But just for all of our sakes, I still might do the test to leave no stone unturned. Some of my close friends that have given me great advice in the past have told me that I'm doing the right thing by not acting rash. With the video I could totally ruin her and Seth, but what would I do to my kids? Regardless, I am going to be able to put some stipulations on how we move forward one way or the other, and I'm trying to figure out what those are. I'm not trying to get back with her, I'm trying to find the best way to move forward for our kids. I will post another update following this conversation. Update 2. I'd like to thank the Reddit community again for additional advice they've given me on top of what they gave me after my first update. I'm going to use some of this. I have many people calling me a simp because I didn't react emotionally. But I always found the best revenge to be methodical and with a lot of thought. I finally had a sit down with Cass. Both of her and Seth gone into defense trying to protect themselves as much as they possibly could. I have the upper hand and also know exactly what I'm going to do. First off, I did an at-home paternity test. Both of the children are indeed mine. There was some doubt based on what the Reddit community was saying, but I got the truth. When I arrived at the house, the first thing that Cass wanted to do was give me a hug. I denied her. She doesn't get to keep playing on my emotions anymore. I honestly felt nothing as she began to cry. I wanted the upper hand in a conversation, so I let her go first. She began by telling me how sorry she was and how she can't get the image of my face when I walked in on her with Seth. She said she had time to reflect on all of the good things and strides I made recently, and realized that she was going a different direction in her head no matter what I did. The situation has made her realize what she did in having me as a partner. We haven't been intimate as of late. She told me that she convinced Seth that this would be a one-time thing to see if she could be intimate with somebody else. She wanted to make sure that it wasn't just her and her emotional state on why she couldn't be emotionally and physically intimate with me. I didn't believe this for 1 second. She knew I had the video and asked me what I was going to do with it. With us being in the same industry, there was a lot of implications that could happen. It would ruin their reputations. There I realized what she was saying earlier was a ploy. Cass having those narcissistic tendencies, it made me realize that's what she was worried about the whole time. And goes my plan. I relayed to her that I don't believe her and actions speak louder than words. Her asking what I was going to do with the video told me what she was really worried about. She asked me not to implicate Seth and his job because he had a family. It was her decision and she convinced him to bring him over and test to see if she could be intimate again, which is complete BS. I said the moral man he is, he should have known better. I understand what it's like to have a relationship with somebody at work, but there are lines you don't cross. He was in that bed too. I was pissed and realized how little of a priority I was again. With my kids in mind, I need to make sure that I'm taking the correct steps to protect myself and them. I told her immediately that Seth needs to find another job. With our industry being very small, he should be able to find one very easily due to the experience that you need. If he doesn't do this, this video is going to go to his work and to his wife. She deserves to know. She said she couldn't ask him to do that. I told her that this decision was both of yours, and how am I supposed to just let everything go without consequences? The world doesn't work like that. She said that her and Seth are not on speaking terms because of what happened. He blames her for what happened. I told her you'll see him at work. I'm sure you can pull him aside. Not my problem. I then began to tell her that she needs to go find a place immediately. She said she had no place to go. I said not my problem. I would take the kids to my other family members, but their school is close and can't take them that far. There's no immediate family where we live. I told her that I have the upper hand due to the evidence. Why would I be the one that would be forced to leave, as well as Seth getting to keep his job and his marriage intact? I did nothing wrong. I didn't deserve this. She said didn't know what to do. I said that's not my problem. I explained that her narcissistic tendencies affected me mentally and emotionally through our relationship. She needed to hear it because narcissistic people think they never do anything wrong and gaslight. She needed to hear everything I had to say in order to become a better person and mother to our kids. But that's our extent of our relationship moving forward. I told her I'm not your friend anymore, and not bother me with any of her BS. In the past, she knew I was a problem solver and would use her problems to try to gaslight me. I asked her to leave after, as she had no response. I plan to let Seth's wife know, and I want Seth gone from the company first. In order not to affect my kids too much, I don't want Cass's job to be in jeopardy. However, if they don't do what I want, then that's their choice and they know the consequence. I have contacted a lawyer. We meet in the middle of the week. He will have it all in later front of him. Even things from the past from our relationship. There will be another follow-up as things progress.